Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Back with more Distress Oxide Spray videos. This time combined with my Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil. So, I am starting by cutting down some watercolor paper, and then I'll get back to that in a minute. And then I'm using some of Spellbinders Glimmering Hot Foil in polished brass, which just very gold and fabulous. And then I'm using this little Spellbinders foil cutter. I'm pretty sure I've shown this in a few videos now. They had sent this to me way back when it was first released. I really like it for cutting foil because if you're at all like used to using foil, it's very, very thin, and just using scissors and that, it gets frustrating sometimes. So I like this little tool to just hold it flat, and then I can cut my foil to shape. And then I'm going to use those little narrow pieces that are left over. I'm going to use those for the sentiments, which I'll get to later. So for my actual foiling, I'm using the Glimmering Peony hot foil plate. It's beautiful. And I have hot foiled on watercolor paper before. I did a video a while ago and I used Arch's hot press. I thought like, oh, it needs to be a smooth surface. So with this, I'm experimenting because Canson watercolor paper has some texture to it. So I've got my watercolor paper, my Glimmering hot foil plate, my foil face up. And then I'd purchased this Spellbinders tape, this yellow tape. It's very similar to washi tape. I like it. And something that, I don't know why this never occurred to me before, but I've seen Yana Smakula do it. And if you don't watch her videos, highly recommend, especially her hot foil videos, because she does a ton for Spellbinders. But just taping down the hot foil plate. That's it. It game changer. Seriously. I will be doing more hot foiling just for that simple little trick. I picked that up from her videos and it just, yeah. Anyway, so I've got it on my Glimmering hot foil machine. I press the button, let it heat up. My stack, I use the cutting plate that comes with the shim. It's not a cutting plate, the clear plate and the little green shim. And then I have one piece of cardstock. For me, I find that's what works perfectly. And then another thing I've been doing is taking my time running it through my machine. I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum here. Platinum 6 would be the same thing. And I run it back and forth a couple of times slowly. This is a little bit sped up in editing, but I run it through slowly, letting it really press that foil into cardstock, watercolor paper, whatever. And I get perfect results. It just, again, you got to fiddle with it a bit to figure out what works best, different cardstocks, etc. This ended up working really, really well. The rare times now that I do get any little bits of overfoiling, I have this little creative detailer eraser. I loves it. It's got, you put little batteries in it so it spins and it just, I can get it into little nooks and crannies. And that's what I'm using here, and it just removes it. I've also shown in other videos using just a white eraser, a sand eraser. That also works really well. I've got my little combos that work. So I did all of that and then I made a big mistake, but I'm going to keep it in the video because I wasn't paying attention. I put my foil face down and I didn't know. I didn't even clue in until I remove it from the machine after the whole step. So what I'm doing here is I should be putting the foil face up. I'm using little sentiments from the mini Everyday Sentiments set. So I have these trimmed down. I'm using those little extra pieces of that same foil and I'm doing it on black cardstock. So the foil should be face up, but I wasn't even thinking. So I'm putting them with the sentiments face down. So I end up foiling these little hot plates. It does not wreck them. It doesn't hurt anything. They still work because I'll reuse them. I'm going to redo this after I realized that when I peeled it off, the cardstock had nothing on it and the little foil plates had the pretty foil on them. So this time, redid the process. Foil face up, then my sentiments, put them on my black cardstock, taped them down, especially with sentiments. Taping them down makes a million times difference. Why I never thought of this before. This is why I like to watch other people's videos. I get so much inspiration from them. And just little tips and tricks, you know? So they foiled perfectly. So they still work, even though I foiled them onto the foil plates. So I did this a couple times. And then off camera, I die cut them. There's coordinating dies that come with that mini Everyday Sentiments. So I die cut those. And then with the Glimmering Peonies that I foiled onto the watercolor paper, I'm going to watercolor these with my Distress Oxide sprays. I've shown this in a lot of videos recently. So I've just shaken up the sprays and then I just apply them with a nozzle to my little plastic palette. And I'm using Rustic Wilderness, Worn Lipstick, and Mustard Seed. I wanted to use Distress Spray Stains, but I actually don't have these colors yet, other than the Rustic Wilderness. So I just went with Oxide sprays. My other video where I watercolored over hot foil, I just used Distress Oxide inks. So you can use whatever floats your boat. You can use watercolors, you know, water reactive dye-based inks, etc. Sprays like this, distress inks, any of those things are going to work. With anything like the oxides, I go with a lighter hand because oxides have the pigments in them. Pigments like to sit on top of things. Foiling, hot foiling like this generally will kind of resist a lot, which is really nice, but pigments will still sit on top of it, just FYI. I worked a little harder this time when I was painting to give more white space. I've mentioned this in other videos. I have a very heavy hand. It's very hard not to only like fill in every space, but also just, you know, do my messy, splattery, yada, yada, yada. I wanted to leave white space, so I worked on that. It was like, no, don't go all out. So I would wet each area with just clean water. And then I'd pick up a bit of the spray with my brush and keep it more to like the bases of the petals, you know, etc. The center of the leaves. And then it would move out on its own, which is fine. But I wouldn't purposely pull it out and completely cover every little area. So, and shockingly, I add no splatter. These, I really wanted the foil to, you know, really stand out. And I wanted to do a little more clean and simple, which is not normally my style either. But again, I want the foil just, it just makes it. It's so much more, especially in real life versus like just heat embossing images and that sort of thing. The foil is just another like level of like reflective shimmer, metallic wonderfulness. So my card bases are Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. And I actually had extras of these because I was experimenting at first and I didn't like the layouts I had going with my first pieces, but of course I'm not going to trash them because they foiled perfectly. So what I ended up doing was just fussy cutting them while I was doing the other images. And then I adhered them to the inside of the cards. Although this could totally be a card front as well. Like you don't need to color in these images. They're just gorgeous with the foil detail. But of course I need to have something on the inside of my cards. So I adhered them to the insides, trimmed off the excess, and then a couple of the sentiments that I had properly foiled and die cut, I adhered to the inside of the cards. And then the sentiments for the outside, I actually die cut extra layers from black cardstock, and I'll show that in a second. For the actual main card front panels, I had cut them down and then I'm adhering them to the card bases with Simon's Big Mama foam tape. So it gives them a little bit of dimension. And then the dimension for the sentiments, just scraps of black cardstock die cut with the same little banner die from the mini everyday sentiment set. So I stacked them sort of 3 layers thick all together and it just gives it that little extra something. So I'd done all that. And then my final bit of embellishment, I had purchased these Spellbinders Color Essentials gems. They're self-adhesive, so you just gotta peel and stick, literally. So I just use, because some of them are really, really tiny, I just use my little die release tool to peel them off of the backing and to place them kind of around the image. I use the gold ones, of course, just to go with the gold foil. And also keeping these rather limited, you know, not doing the throw up of gems I usually do. Trying to keep it clean and simple. So I'm going to adhere these into place, just peel and stick. Once these are adhered, I'm going to pair these cards with some pink envelopes from my stash, and that's going to finish off these cards. These are also part of this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. I forgot to mention that earlier. I will have a link to the Color Throwdown Challenge in my blog post. My blog post is always the first link directly below the video. And then in my blog post, I link to the Color Throwdown Challenge. I'll have picture links to all the supplies I used. That'll all be listed as well directly below the video. So you can check that out below if you are interested. As always, thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, thumbs upping, hitting the bell, commenting, all of it. I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.